We good, Carissa?
No, it's on the first.
Oh, really? The declaration, they just don't know how to do it?
They didn't even care. You just put a tree there. The cloth you put underneath, you just threw it there. I didn't even bother to touch it.
Oh my God. Well, when they have kids of their own, then
saying when the
all those
clock
details
starts,
will be
it's
important
55.
because they
So
have to
wait,
produce
now
the
we're on.
measurement
We're good.
sizes.
All right, we're going to call to order tonight. Thank you to everyone for coming and tuning in at home. First thing we'll do is call to order and do the roll call. Joan?
Director Hockert? Here. Director Kelsenberg?
Here.
Director Petrie?
Here.
Director Porbeni?
Yep.
Director Thiedlander?
Here.
Chair Sherman?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start with the oath of office. For people watching at home or here in the room, you're probably noticing we're short one board member, and I just want to really quickly read an email that I received from Eva Lee, and she will be unable this evening to take the oath of office and to serve. There's an employment opportunity that has presented itself since she won the seat on the Stillwater School Board, and she will not be able to fulfill her obligation as a member of the board. I am presenting the board with my resignation effective immediately. So we'll be discussing this later in the meeting, but I just wanted, obviously we're going to be replacing that seat and we'll have to work towards a special election in November, but we wish her all the congratulations on her future endeavors. So with that, we're going to do the oath of office, and because I am a part of that, we're going to turn it over to Director Hockert.
All right, thank you. I believe all of you have it in front of you as well, and I believe we raise our right hand. And then I'll just have you repeat after me. I'll read nice and slow. I affirm that I will support
I affirm that I will support
the Constitution of the United States and of this state,
the Constitution of the United States and of this state,
and that I will discharge faithfully
and that I will discharge faithfully
the duties of the office of School Board Member of Independent School District Number 834,
the duties of the office of the School Board Member of Independent School District 834
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
That's it. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Right. So right now, I'm going to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. Director Hockert seconds. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're going to move on to the board elections, so just the organizational meeting for the year. We're going to have the directions, I believe, that are going to be on the screen. But we're going to have nominations open for starting with chair. And the procedure, just for those at home, we'll ask for nominations 3 times, and then we will vote. It's usually we do just a roll call vote. Sometimes you can do paper ballot, but we did it last year, and I think it worked great with just the roll call. Everyone needs to know our vote anyway, and it saves time, and it's just more efficient. And we'll kind of just go down the list of positions. So first is the election of chair. It's open for nominations. Director Petrie?
I would like to nominate Allison Sherman for board chair.
Great, and I will accept that nomination. Are there any other nominations for a chair? Are there any other nominations? Great. All right, roll call vote.
Director Hockert?
Allison Sherman.
Director Kelsenberg?
Allison Sherman.
Director Petrie?
Allison Sherman.
Director Porbeni?
Allison Sherman.
Director Sherman?
Allison Sherman.
And Director Thiedlander?
Allison Sherman.
Allison Sherman has the votes.
Great, thank you, everyone. All right, now we're going to move on to vice chair. I would like to open the floor and ask for nominations. Director Hockert.
I would like to nominate Director Petrie.
All right, we have a nomination for Director Petrie for vice chair. Is there another nomination? Is there any other nomination? Okay, we'll go to the roll call vote.
Director Hackert,
Bev Petrie.
Director Kelsenberg,
Bev Petrie.
Director Petrie,
Bev Petrie.
Director Porbeni,
Bev Petrie.
Chair Sherman,
Bev Petrie.
Director Thielander.
Bev Petrie.
Bev Petrie has the votes.
Congratulations, Director Petrie. All right, moving on to nominations for the next office, which is clerk. We have nominations for clerk. Yes.
I'd like to nominate Katie Hackert for position of clerk.
Great. And you accept the nomination?
Yes, I'll accept the
Great.
nomination.
Great. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Great. And Joan, we're ready for the roll call.
Director Hackert,
Katie Hockert.
Director Kelsenberg,
Katie Hockert.
Director Petrie,
Katie Hackert.
Director Porbeni,
Katie Hackert.
Chair Sherman,
Katie Hockert.
Director Thielander.
Katie Hockert.
Director Hackert has the votes.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, and then the last office tonight is for treasurer. Are there any nominations for treasurer? Yes.
I would like to nominate Pete Kelsenberg as treasurer.
Great. And you're willing to take on that responsibility?
I accept.
Great. Thank you. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay. And Joan, roll call.
Director Hackert,
Pete Kelsenberg.
Director Kelsenberg,
Pete Kelsenberg.
Director Petrie,
Pete Kelsenberg.
Director Porbeni,
Pete Kelsenberg.
Chair Sherman,
Pete Kelsenberg.
Director Thielander.
Pete Kelsenberg.
Director Kelsenberg has the votes.
Congratulations. All right, thank you. Just wanted to be really quick, go through some of our committee assignments and working groups. We'll assign those officially as of the next meeting, but I would ask that if you have any special requests or interests to let me know. The only one person that will automatically be assigned is it's in policy that our treasurer is on finance and ops, so that is for certain. The other things I wanted to discuss, and if you have any other thoughts or objections to this, but we talked a lot about, or I've given a lot of thought and talked to Dr. Funk, just about why we have chairs on our committees, and that we are a flat board. No one has any more power than the next person. And so I guess I'd like to just do away with the chair. I think really what we saw is that the chairs are pretty much doing the note-taking, and really that should be the role of staff, as I was talking to Superintendent Funk. So transitioning that responsibility back to staff and just have a flat structure. Is there any objection to that or any concern? Okay, just a small change, and everyone will still be assigned. And then lastly, we had two ad hoc committees that both, that were kind of, I don't know, they were active certain times of the year, but that was legislative and community engagement. And as we were talking, as I was just kind of talking about what each committee does, and as Superintendent Funk was looking at both committees, they really are interconnected, because the way we engage with our legislators is also how we would engage with community members. Our legislators are a part of our community, so just having a engagement calendar that would incorporate both as their charge, and then involve us all in the execution of that engagement just seemed to make the most sense. And also from staff's perspective, Carissa does both committees, so I think it's just easy for her to help out and do both at once and look at it from one larger engagement picture. Is there any objection to that, just combining those two? Okay. Did you have any other comments on that? Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. And again, just email me your thoughts on what you would like to do, and I'll do my best. So now we'll move to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, which should be on the screen? Director Porbeni, and a second. Director Kelsenberg. Okay, and the consent agenda is on the screen. All those, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent is approved. We have two action items tonight, and the first is establishing the 2023 board member salary. And I would like to make a motion to approve the board member salary as is. if I could get a second, I do want to have a little bit of a conversation about this. So if I could get a
I'll
second.
second.
Great, Director Petrie. I'm not sure, it was in the packet for the community, and I'm sure the board also had some time to look at this. I think it's just important to note, although I'm not suggesting we make any changes this year, we have not had an adjustment since 2014. So it is kind of approaching that 10-year mark. And most significantly, I think that as a district, we've always tried to stay in that middle spot of comparables within our neighboring districts. And right now, we are dead last. And so the average director, taking away the highest and the lowest, is $5,337, and we are at $4,750. The board chair is a little bit more than that. The board chair sits at $5,955, but we're kind of last if you look at what's in the packet. So I want to get your thoughts. I also want to maybe just put it out there for us to consider next year, that maybe we really, take this year to kind of think about it, look at it, maybe even automate something that keeps us, I thought, could we have a procedure in place? And I asked Dr. Funk about this, where we could maybe just automatically every, 2-3 year, just kind of make any adjustment necessary to keep the district at that mid spot, because it's certainly an uncomfortable conversation to have, to keep your own pay, because we're all here for altruistic reasons for the most part. It's not for the monetary compensation, but for some it could be, and I want to keep making the position more broadly in its appeal to people in the district to serve. So, I don't know. Any other comments? Yes, Director Hucker.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because it was definitely something that I was digging into a little bit more this year. And the points you've made are very valid on where we are on the pay scale. And this chart, I was really focusing on the number of meetings that each of these different districts hold as their regularly scheduled meetings. And according to this list, we are tied at the top for 24 meetings, just regularly scheduled board meetings in a year. And that seems, part and parcel of what everybody else is doing. But then I looked back at my actual calendar and went through and kind of counted how many we actually had, because I knew a few more were added this year. And we ended up attending 37 meeting days, which is above and beyond the 24 that is on paper, at least. And that is just the days of meetings. We also had a few of those nights, several of the nights, that we had additional meetings before the meeting and then a meeting after the meeting. So this really does become a very large time commitment for board members that is above and beyond what is at least on paper. So as I've been going through this for 2 years now, it's becoming a kind of reality of how much of an investment this is and how limiting that could possibly be for potential board members moving forward. And in our district, we have had some issues with board members not being able to fulfill their full 4-year obligation as well. Since 2020, we have lost 4, and now actually tonight 5 board members not able to fulfill their electoral duties. So I have to believe there's something we can do to make this job more manageable for all kinds of board members, not just ones with tons of time or lots of resources to be able to support themselves. So I am definitely interested in looking at not only kind of the salary and how we fall, but also the time commitment that is expected of board members in order to fulfill this position and this obligation, because we do need stable leadership in this district. And I hope that we are definitely trending in the right direction. Our board meetings have gotten a lot shorter for sure, but I think there's still some room for improvement.
Great. Director Petrie?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I would like for us to take, my preference is for us to take a little bit of time to figure out what is possible. Is it even possible to have some sort of an inflator each year, like a 2% or something. I know that we're not actually supposed to commit future boards, so is that even something that we could do? But I guess the point is that we're not really prepared to do anything tonight, I think. I would rather just consider it a little bit longer and perhaps make the change next year once we have thought about what the best approach would be, but I would really like to see those salaries be set sort of in the middle of the range for what these other districts do, and then try to keep it at that level, because again, you're right, it just does become an uncomfortable conversation to raise our own salaries, and but on the other hand, I think that, with an annual salary of $4,700, people know that we're not doing this for the money.
And I do think that, like I said, I made the motion tonight just to approve it as it has been for the last 14 years. I don't think it's something we should do tonight. I just wanted to, as I was looking through the packet, I just actually stopped for a second and was looking at it and thought it would be a good time maybe to broach it at a public discussion, open up the community to share their thoughts with us, and maybe it's something we as a board choose to address later on down the line when we're, yes.
Just a couple thoughts. So, one of the things that I can state is I am committed to reducing meetings. Okay? I think part of what I have seen here is, and I watched the archives and a lot of meetings. Okay? And with a lot of meetings, there's a lot of turnover. So, as you mentioned, I think we as a board and as a district are trending in the right direction in that manner. So I think, we're going to have a lot of stuff ahead of us this year, but I think if we can focus it in the meetings that we have on the calendar, we're going to have on the calendar, and not add to your plate, I think we'll be okay. The second, I'm not compensated as a board member up here, so I can speak to this without having any ownership in it. And, you have heard me repeatedly say, I think, over time, expect the best. All right? Well, being at the bottom in compensation is certainly not expecting the best of anybody. So I wholeheartedly agree that we should be shooting towards the middle or higher as a community. And one of the things that I can tell you with our new finance director and myself, who both come in with a lot of financial background experience, an increase to the salary of board members is not going to be impacting our budget in a negative way in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's 1/10 or 1/100th of a decimal point of our overall budget. So I recognize not only the long hours, but the emails and the emotional burden that you face as board members when there are people who are upset about what happens, with their children in the school district. So you're not in it for the money, but at the same time, I think that this is something we seriously need to take a look at as a district.
Great. Well, I'll kind of make a note of that on my calendar to bring that back up maybe in December or sometime next winter. And hopefully between now and then, we can hear from the community if someone has ideas or thoughts or opinions on that. We're always welcome for that. So there is a motion and a second. Unless anyone else had something they wanted to say about this topic, we can vote on just keeping it as is. But I don't want to stop conversation if anyone has anything. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of maintaining the existing salary structure for school board members, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And speaking of meetings, we're going to turn it over to Superintendent Funk to talk about our meeting schedule.
So, I have been here 6 months now, and as I like to tell people, for the first 6 months, let's not do anything, don't rock the boat, learn about the district. And so here I'm going to rock the boat for the first time tonight, make a suggested change that is different than how we've operated, I think, for a number of years here in Stillwater. So what I'm recommending tonight is that we go through a different date for our calendar, or for our board meetings. Currently, we are Thursday nights at 6:30. I'm recommending, we have two calendars we can look at tonight. We can look at one that says Thursday nights at 6 PM. We're going to try to move things up a half hour. Or Tuesday nights at 6 PM. And I'm going to recommend to the board that we move the board meetings to Tuesday nights, and here's kind of the why behind that. So there's a lot of work that we do as an administrative staff preparing for board meetings. And that goes in between board meetings, and then we really start cranking the Monday before the packet goes out on Friday. Well, then the packet goes out on Friday, we come back to work on Monday, and we've got all these other things we're working on, and we're working on them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it comes to Thursday, oh yeah, we got to now have a board meeting and go over that packet information we just sent the board last Friday. So it just kind of throws the administration out of sync a little bit as far as what we're doing. So if we can move the board meeting up a couple days to Tuesday, all right, board packet goes out Thursday or Friday, okay. Then board still has a number of days to look at the packet. Then we can have the meeting, boom, and then we can move on and continue with other things operationally. So that's kind of the why behind it. And, Tuesday or Thursday, we want to stay away from a Wednesday for really community reasons. And so Monday's hard. There's a lot of holidays on Monday. People have other things going on Mondays. So my recommendation is that we pick Tuesday, and then what can Joan or Carissa, can you pop up the Tuesday calendar for the board to take a look at? I don't know if it's on there.
While they're doing that, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned board packets. So typically we have the board meeting on Thursday, packets come out Friday. So it's just, 6 days. I think it's in our policies that we try to do 7 days, but I think we've kind of been flexible around that. Are you thinking that the packets would then come out like Wednesday or Thursday, more?
We'll have to take a look at your policy.
Okay.
I still think that's a long time ahead of the board meeting. I think if you come out 4 or 5 days, you'll get a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
It helps us as administration if we don't push it out so far out in advance.
Yep. And I don't mind that myself. I would want to hear what other board directors think, but I think as long as we're minimizing the revisions so that when we get the packet, it's the packet and we're looking at it and then we have that 4 or 5 days, I don't see myself having an issue. Director Porbeni?
Thank you, Chair Sherman. I think it's fair. We can always change a policy as long as we make your job a lot easier. I don't think it will kill any one of us to take a look at the package within 4 days. So I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah. And we're really talking, instead of we normally have 6 days, you said Thursday, so we're talking 1 day less. We're not talking something significant. Any other thoughts?
The other thing, I took a look at your public comment policy, or not a policy, but your procedure. And procedure is, I think starting on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. I think you could still say Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and it still gives people a couple days ahead of the board meeting that they could sign up for. So we wouldn't have to adjust that unless you wanted to move it, prior to the Friday, the weekend before or whatever. But I think that still is a lot of time for people to sign up.
So right now, just so everyone knows, we open up on Monday for public comment for a Thursday meeting. So that would be, I don't know if we would want to open it up kind of on Friday, give people the weekend and Monday. I hate to limit them to that short a window, I guess, but I'm open to everyone else's thoughts.
Go ahead.
Director Petrie?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's any disadvantage, really. It's just a matter of changing a date on a form, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of when they could sign up. I guess my point is why not give people as much time as we can for them to sign up to come speak to us. You're right. If essentially we're talking about a day and a half for them to sign up, their time, that might be the busiest time of their week, and then they forget to sign up. So why not just have the form open earlier?
Friday. Maybe because if they're not going to want to know to speak until probably the packet comes out, I would imagine. So I don't see, if we opened it up Friday, they'd have Friday all day,
And then the
Saturday,
weekend.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it'd be the same, just over the weekend instead of business days.
And it's an automated system, right? So it's not,
Yeah.
they're not taking up somebody's time
Nope,
to sign up.
it's all automated.
Yep, okay.
And so we just want to look at that one policy, I guess that does say a week. But I personally feel if it helps staff operate more forward-thinking and you're more reactive and responsive to the needs of the community and the students and the staff, I think it's a good suggestion. I appreciate that from our superintendent. Yes?
Thank you,
Dr.
Chair Sherman.
Spielman.
No, I'm full agreement. I have no issues in moving that to Tuesday. And I think, as you mentioned, Director Petrie, I think it makes sense just to remove any and all obstacles of having maybe more accessible as a board. So I would think that makes sense. One question I did have as a new director is, so you have the weekend, and there's questions. What's the expectations around that of we want to be mindful of personal time?
Yes, don't contact the superintendent, but talk to the director. Really, I'm available whenever, but I would, I think, if you have a burning question, you can always contact me. But otherwise, just, I'll keep it away from the directors until Monday. You may not get a response
Yeah,
right away.
okay. Make sure you have enough lead time to
Yeah.
properly respond.
Yep.
Okay.
And going to something like this doesn't mean we can't, if it doesn't work,
Right.
we make an adjustment. Maybe
Right.
it doesn't work as well the way staff thinks it is, and maybe it becomes untenable for us in some way. And so I want to keep that conversation ongoing, but I don't think there's any harm in trying something new to see if it better serves our students and staff and community members. So,
I'd say there might be even one other benefit is if we're meeting on Tuesdays, now it frees up our Thursdays, and some of the other things we do that aren't these meetings
Right.
are more likely to happen on a Thursday. I think the schedule just gets busier with the games. I'm missing a good hockey game tonight right now. By being here, if we change it to Tuesday, I could be there, so.
So here's the proposed schedule for, I asked the question, all right, do we do first and third, second and fourth? And so what I would like to do is for a consistency basis, pick one or the other. So this is a second and fourth option. So basically, starting on the 24th of January, you would meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, with the exception of July, when we would have one meeting in July, which would be on the 11th. Most districts have one meeting in July. And so, the red flag that caught my eye as I was looking through this, of course, is looking at Pete's tie over there, Valentine's Day, February 14th. That's, we'd certainly move it to the 7th if Valentine's Day is a burning issue for board members, but I think that's the only real, conflict that I could potentially see for folks on this agenda for the upcoming year.
yes, Director Porbeni?
Is Valentine's Day a burning issue for board members?
Not for me.
Okay.
Can't get
My
reservations
husband will
anyway.
call it a Hallmark holiday, so. My only conflict, and this is every year, and I'll just remind Joan, is I conference in on June 6th. That's kind of a standing time that I have. And we always have a board member that week, but I'm always patched in, so, in the past. And if anyone, obviously, you might not know all your conflicts at this point, but I would just ask to shoot an email to, when you know you can't attend, just to myself, Mike, and with a copy to Joan, just to let us know, and we'll make sure, we're always tracking that stuff, so. And if you know, the further in advance you know, the better, but, so.
So that's my recommendation.
Okay.
is,
So this is an action item. So I can go ahead. I would like to try the Tuesday, so I'll make a motion to do the Tuesdays this, as proposed here. Is it option C, I think is what it's called? Can I get a second? Okay. We have a first and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? Again, I just want to make sure that we'll just have an ongoing dialogue. If this becomes too difficult for a director or for you as a staff, we can evaluate.
Do you want us to make the motion for 6 PM meeting?
Yes, oh, yes, thank you. And we're going to make a motion for 6 PM. And again, we're just trying something different. We'll reevaluate and let us know how it works.
Can I make one quick
I'll make.
Yeah, oh, did you
quick
have a comment?
comment before we vote?
And we have a first and second.
Yep, and we're ready to go. I just pulled up the policy, and it is a 6-day
Okay.
period. So we'll
We
just
can-
have
we-
to address that
Yep.
with the policy. And then,
Sounds good.
But honestly, I don't have an issue with the Tuesday at all.
Great.
Do something different.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor of changing to Tuesdays, option C, 6 PM, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And again, I want to appreciate, and I look forward to these kind of changes that you're suggesting, Superintendent Funk, so you have our support. All right. Next item to discuss is unfortunate. No one wants to start this year out like this, but we have a board member vacancy. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, Eva Lee is unable to serve due to an opportunity that she received professionally. So, Policy 215 is our board resignation vacancy policy for anyone that wants to read it. I read through it, and it basically allows us to kind of do what we need to do to fill the vacancy. So I am going to, next meeting, I'm going to have a resolution. Mike, Dr. Funk and I will have a resolution for us to approve, notifying the public of the vacancy. A couple things I wanted to bring up as I was looking at the last process we did, and I just want to have a conversation about this. We're not voting on anything, it's just a discussion. Is one, I would like to, I don't know, I think we've always been kind of tight on the window of applications, and I'd like to extend it to 10 days if possible. I think we've done 7 days in the past, but I know we like to do 10 days. I just want to give people, sometimes it takes a little bit for word to get out that the vacancy exists. People like to maybe recommend that a friend signs up, and it just takes a few days. So does anyone have any problem with extending it to like a 10-day? I think last time we did 7 days. So, okay. Yes, Director Petrie.
I would say even 2 weeks is
Okay.
probably, I agree. I think that it's sometimes hard to get word out in the community that,
Okay.
that we have this vacancy and that, people need to
Think about
mention it to their friends and all of that sort of thing. I don't think that, I don't think 2 weeks is, it wouldn't, I don't think it would have a deleterious effect on our work
Okay.
if it took us, 3 or 4 weeks to get this position filled.
Okay, great. So I will look at, with superintendent, I will look at kind of that 10 days to 2 weeks, unless there's anyone that has any other, and I'll just kind of look at the calendar so we're not adding meetings that we don't need to have, so. And then the other thing, when I was looking at this, and I did not, I think I brought it up briefly, but I would like to, we typically have had an application and then an interview process, and I know you went through the process, so you might have some insight. But I think that what we did for the superintendent interview was actually nice, that we had the interviews and they were recorded but not broadcast live. And then after all the interviews were done, then they were put out on our YouTube site. Because really what ends up happening, I think, is that people end up listening to each other, so there's an advantage that maybe the last candidate
I
has.
tried, it didn't get a chance.
So the last candidate kind of can have the advantage of maybe hearing some other responses and not, it's just human nature to hear what people are wanting to say. There's nothing bad. But I just thought maybe to have a little bit more of a even, conversation with every director, potential director.
Oh, I was going
Yeah,
to say a couple
sure.
things. One, we have a sizable crowd tonight, and whoever's watching is just what happens here is we appoint somebody to fill this 7th chair, and that person will serve until the November election.
Yep, we'll have a special election.
And at that election, they will serve essentially right away rather than waiting till the January meeting that we have right
Correct.
now.
Yes.
For the final 3 years of that seat.
Yes, no, good point. I should have brought that up. So that is, we will be filling a vacancy that will last up until the election, which there will unfortunately be a special election here for this position. And then they will fill out the remainder of what would have been Eva Lee's term, which will be 3 years. So this position, this vacancy, is just for a little less than a year, I guess, by the time they get appointed. So, good point. Does anyone have any feelings about interviews, just not recording them live, but posting them later and just having a similar process to what we did for the superintendent? Any objections? Yes.
I would just suggest something to consider, and I'm going back to the time issue. Depending on the volume of applicants you receive, a potential idea would be, as part of the application process, you ask them to fill out some questions.
Yes.
And then an option for the board would be, okay, based upon what we're reading in the questions, these are the candidates that we want to interview. As opposed to, all right, we get 15 people apply, now we're going to interview 15 people. So just an idea for you to consider.
And that's actually, thank you for reminding me of that, because we haven't had that as a problem in the past. I mean, we've had very few people apply, but that could always change. And I do think that having much more than, 5 candidates kind of come in to speak would get overwhelming and long. So I don't know if we want to write something into the process that we would, narrow down based on the written responses, the up to 5, up to 7. I don't know what we can decide on that number. No more than 7 would be invited back, and that gives us some opportunity to, if everyone looks at the applications and finds someone different that they want to bring in, I certainly want to be able to have everyone have that person come in and speak to the board further. So maybe up to 7, but I do agree, we don't want to, if by chance we were to get many, many applicants, we probably don't want everyone coming in. We can probably narrow it down.
For the superintendent search, we made that decision after the applicants came in and we sorted through, and then we decided how many were being interviewed, if I recall.
Yeah, I don't know if we would want to probably be as specific as possible, so I guess I would feel comfortable just saying up to 7 might be invited for an interview, or, where we're not obligated to bring in that many people, but just so people are aware of the process. And I guess I thought, or up to 6, I guess, because there are 6. Unless you count Superintendent Funk, which we won't for this. But, so maybe up to 6 or 7. Does anyone have any issue with that?
I don't have an issue with that. I guess my question just has to do with the timing of the process, because if we are going to include questions with the application, where are those questions going to come from? If I'm certain that, we have another meeting in January. Are we going to wait until then to come up with this process?
What I would suggest you do, since we just got the resignation, I would suggest that we put together a resolution for the board to fill the vacancy, and we can put a timeline in there, and we ask you to approve that in January. And then in January, we can also bring forward some recommended questions for the candidates
Right.
that you could approve. Or you could designate a subcommittee, the chair, and to approve those questions.
I guess my thought, because we have some existing questions with some modifications, and I would invite, anyone to kind of submit any questions to me, but what I'm thinking is I'll bring something to the board table as a report that will lay out the process and look at the questions. We can certainly discuss it. Obviously, we don't want everyone to know what the questions are, so we'll have to kind of do that similar to what we did for the superintendent search. So we'll number them, but that was my intent, was to bring something back for you to all react to with the timeline, with part of the resolution. So we'll look at the calendar, Dr. Funk and I, and do that. The one thing I also wanted to add to our application, which we didn't have, is references. I think I mentioned that to you. I don't see any issue with that, and I personally think that's a a good idea to have some references as a part of it. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. We have not done that in the past on our applications. But I would certainly be willing to reach out for references provided from candidates. So you'll probably see that.
Sorry, I like
Go ahead.
I like the idea of references
Okay.
as long as we have someone designated, like
Yeah.
the chair, to do the reference checks so that we know who's collecting the information. So.
Exactly, and then sharing it out. Great. All right, well, is there anything else that, I guess, any other questions or ideas within the process that, I know for, what we do vote ultimately, so for Director Thielander, we will vote, I think did we do roll call or did we do paper vote last time? We did paper, I think we did top three. So we'll identify all that. I'll go back and look at that. I think we did paper and we did top three candidates or something. Yeah,
We did paper, and I think Joan or
Yeah.
Carissa then counted them up and told
right,
us.
so. But it's all public, all your votes, so just so for our new board director, so.
Is there a
Hemberg?
statute of when we have to have this done by?
I'll have to look. There's a lot of flexibility. A lot of boards, like, for example, people resigned last August, September. Board didn't fill it till November. So I think your timeline you're looking at here is probably resolution and, on the 24th, which is almost a week and a half. And then you'll probably fill it within a month, I would imagine. So I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm vaguely remembering this. Is there a waiting period after we appoint someone
Yes.
Yes.
before they can be seated
Yes,
too? Do you
there
remember
is.
how long that was?
It should be in your policy.
Okay.
I thought it was 30 days.
Scroll a little bit, Carissa. Go back up.
I think I have it on this.
Keep on going. Keep on going back up.
I think it's 30.
Keep on going, keep on going. Okay, stop there.
Stay following the board's absent a valid petition.
Okay.
I think when I'm looking at the last resolution, it does say 31st day, on the
Okay.
31st day. So I think it's 31 days.
And I believe that time is for the community to challenge.
Yes, that 31st day.
30
Yep.
days. Yep.
Different than an election because that is the community speaking.
Yep.
Right. So all of that will be in the resolution that I'll bring to the board next week. But again, so all this kind of happened. So I just wanted to have the conversation early so that we can move at the next meeting. And certainly if you think of, I really want to ask this question, shoot me an email. And as I bring it to the board for the next meeting, we can start discussing those. So I think that's all I had on that. If there's any more questions, let me know. All right. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about is the code of conduct. And I want, it's listed as Dr. Funk, but I just want to explain that in the folders, we had the code of conduct policy, which is policy 209. And it was in our board packet. Just as an annual review, we would like to start reviewing the code of conduct. I am asking that we keep our code of conduct in our red folders so that we are holding each other accountable to our policy, our code of conduct policy. And so I asked, there's an acknowledgement form that if you could just sign that you read it, and that if you have any questions, especially for our new director, if you have questions, certainly to talk to the superintendent or myself would be appropriate. But I think, we ask our students to sign, and our families to sign off on handbooks and codes of conduct when they join activities and sporting events and, orchestra and whatever programs that they're in. And so I think it just makes sense that we lead by example and that our conduct is representative of our community, which is second to none in my opinion. So our conduct here at the board table should be the same. So if there were any questions or comments, and then I just wanted Dr. Funk to weigh in as well, so.
Well, one of the things, and Andrew, you've just went through the training, but one of the things that the School Board Association really emphasizes is policy 209, code of conduct, code of ethics. And so one of the recommendations, and I concur with it moving forward here, and I'm glad to see this tonight, is that we review this as a school board on an annual basis. And the reorganization meeting is the perfect time for it. And it just affirms how that, as a board, how you all are going to commit to operating. And so, and it was actually Chair Sherman's idea to come up with the sign-off on it, and I think that's a great idea there, too. So, but this is something that, when I talk about high standards and excellence, this ties right in with it.
So, so I'm assuming everyone read it, and we can, if you sign it, just provide it to Joan, and this will be something that we just kind of do annually to work into our organizational meeting. I think it's just a good reminder and, a good way to start out the year. So if there's any comments or discussion on that. Yes?
Thank you. Chair Sherman, would we, as part of this nomination process to fill the open vacancy, if they make an application, would we also request for that to be signed, just as a
Yes, I
setting
do
a
have a
standard?
question on there that asks them to
Okay.
both read the conflict of interest policy and the code of conduct. I do have something that I'm kind of working on there where they would just kind of let us know if they were unable to fulfill either of those policies was, I think, a good way to ask that. But yes, I think that's a good thing to also hold any appointment accountable to as well. Good point, thank you. I will include that. Any other comments? Great. All right. Is that it? That's it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Can I make one comment?
Oh,
before we adjourn?
yeah.
I'd just like to recognize we have a large group of teachers here coming to our
Yes.
initial meeting here. I want to thank them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to always see our community and staff come out, so thank you very much. Good point, so thank you. Great. Okay, we are adjourned. Happy New Year.